might have an extra few minutes for other people, but also to yeah. Perfect, perfect. Excellent, excellent. We ready to go, Eric? Excellent. All right. Well, thank you everyone for being here to celebrate Floyd Salas, and thank you, Eric, Bird Beckett Books, for having us. Claire, for everything you've done to help make this happen. So my name is Tate Swindell, friend of Floyd's. I'm gonna kind of roll this program along. We got some readers, and it looks like we're probably gonna have time for people that aren't on the bill to come up and say a few words as well. So we have some poetry, some music, some good times, and celebrate Floyd. So I'm gonna kick it off with a poem of Floyd's called Scarecrow from his collection High Running Heart. Out of a tent of wind came a tuxedoed scarecrow, dancing for me with hinged limbs of broom, whistling a dirge through the bearded straw of his chin. His tongue was laughing black, his eye the shadow of crow, the silken knot at his throat, the strangled heart of a bow. Still he danced. His cane steps tapped their song until I cried that I could not dance, with the murmur and shiver of silk, till my toes had nails of bone. My eyes, the curdle of milk. Ooh, get that locked in. So, among many things that Floyd was to many people in this room, activist, poet, sculptor, boxing coach, teacher, painter, father, husband, friend. So I want to bring up the first reader today. This here's Jessica Luce.
I think I can anyway. There we go. Well, hello everyone. Thank you very much for coming today. I actually first met Floyd and Claire years ago. I guess it was like 25 years ago, maybe a little more, when I was living on the Lower East Side in New York. And Floyd and Claire came out there to deliver the Oakland PEN Award to Steve Cannon for his book Groove, Bang, and Jive Around, which is kind of considered to be an underground classic and known for its very lascivious and erotic language. And the book came out with the second edition, and so they were there to present an award, as I said, to Steve Cannon. And I had the legendary honor of escorting Floyd and Claire to the subway station later that evening after a wild party at a gathering of the Tribe's Gallery. And I think Floyd, he also had a reading at the Nuyorican. It was either the day before or the day after. But anyhow, that's how I first met Floyd. And then years later, after I moved out here, I ended up meeting with Floyd because I was doing a project on the late Jack Micheline, the poet, and I interviewed Floyd about Jack Micheline because they were very good friends. And so I'm just going to read a couple of Floyd's poems. The first couple I'm going to read are from Color of My Living Heart. Something hangs about us. We were born with our mothers, but we live and die alone, spend most of our lives shouting and gesturing at each other through windows as if there is a glass wall in between. The one I love, whom I should be close to, whom I cleave to, share my body with, walks around outside me, as if in a dream, with a book in her hand. I see her face me. I see her mouth open and her eyebrows rise. She looks right at me. Her lips move, her eyes brighten, spark green. I wonder if something is wrong, but I cannot hear her. It is a lesson in futility, ghostly, as if we were already dead, but didn't know it. Something hangs about us, heavy in the air. You can almost taste or touch, smell of body odor when there is nobody in the room. A stale scent of old clothes in a closet. We see signs of it sometimes, see hints of what's to come in dreams, nightmares, the loss of self with no return. I reach out for her, but can't touch, can't reach. Her mouth opens wide. She seems to be screaming. No. Picture smoke on a mirror. She gave me that word long ago when we first kissed, and she wondered if it would last. She did not think I believed it, and now she will not speak of it. Behind the black glint of the stone in her eyes, I see nothing. Picture smoke on a mirror, clinging like adhesive to its own cloud, and you see what I see when I see her face. And this one is called All About Sex. At least we're hung up on tits in America, not on plastic Virgin Marys, glued onto dashboards like the Spaniards, though you can't touch either one. And I wonder if we'll ever have a truly natural and happy sex life on this fucked up earth. It's possible in some future time when the atom bomb has become a buddy and out of the polar ice caps make power to green the rest of the earth, make an Eden for everybody, and nobody'd have to work and support babies, so who cares who the father is, like the Polynesians before Moby Dick got there? I mean Herman Melville. And where does James Brown go from here? The rock and talk, way he makes music down home, hums like a throaty saxophone with words all about sex. Do you love me? Yes, I love you. Ain't that a groove? And I'm going to end with just the very beginning of Floyd's famous and somewhat controversial to some people, his little manuscript, Pussy, Pussy Everywhere. And I always thought it was very appropriate that he came to deliver the award to Steve Cannon for Groove, Bang, and Jive Around, since he had written Pussy, Pussy Everywhere. So, Pussy, Pussy Everywhere, A Voyeur's Delight by Floyd Salas. Man, I can't look out a window, no matter what side of the house I'm on, without seeing pussy. A piece of ass through the back window on the front of the front room, lying stomach down, pale purple panties on, long legs stretching out, nice little mounds of ass, all of it cut off above the waist by the window frame. Only that ass, only that ass. And I look once, then twice, then back again the third time, then look around me to see if I'm being watched, if someone's looking at me, feeling like a dirty old man, seeing nothing but pussy, pussy everywhere I look. So I go into the hall to get away, to keep from staring, and what do I see through the back window of the hall but this plump chick with big brown nippled tits standing in the kitchen next to her skinny old man, only half as wide as her, in front of the refrigerator with the door open, her pot belly sticking out, little rolls on her hips. Could it be the same girl? It's the same house, only 10 feet behind me. And I rush to the front room and look out the back window, but no one is there, still lying on the bed in the purple panties. And so it continues onward from there.
Yeah, seriously. Thank you once again, Jessica Luce. Yeah, I met Floyd around the time I was making a Jack Micheline tribute album. And like Jessica said, they were good friends. And Jack lived in the back. house, and there's a great story that Floyd told that is up on the Bandcamp site that I have of the record. It's an extra, but Floyd was great. Absolutely, just an amazing person. Yeah. So we're gonna move it along, and I'm gonna bring up Lucy Day next to read some poems and talk about Floyd. Please welcome Lucy Day.
Well, I met Floyd in the mid-1970s, so I had the good fortune to know him for more than 45 years. So I saw him on many, many occasions, and I'm going to share a couple of memories of him. The first takes place at the Ken Keesey's Poetic Hoo-Ha in the spring of 1977. So a friend of mine, John Teton, wanted me to go to the Hoo-Ha because he wanted me to read one poem there that had been in an article on the Berkeley Poets Co-op in the New York Times Magazine the preceding summer. So I go up to Oregon, and I arrive at Ken Keesey's farm. There's a kickoff the night before. There's a barbecue to kick off this hoo-ha. And so my friend John takes me to meet Ken Keesey, and he's talking to two other men, and I say, hi, it's great to meet you. And he kind of mumbles hello, and then just turns away from me. And Ken Keesey kept talking to these other two men he was talking to. And so I stood there for another few minutes thinking, well, maybe he'll say something more to me, or maybe he'll introduce me to those two men. But no, I had been dismissed. And so after a few minutes, I wandered away, and Floyd was there. And so I talked to Floyd and my friend John, and so I didn't feel totally rejected, although Ken Keesey hadn't wanted to talk to me. So the next day is the hoo-ha. It's at a gym at the University of Oregon in Eugene. And it was supposed to be outdoors, but the weather was not cooperating, so it was indoors. My friend John was lobbying Ken Keesey and the MC to put me on the schedule just to read one poem, and they kept saying they would do it, and my friend John kept coming back to the bleachers and saying, I'll let you know when they put you on the schedule. But in the meantime, I heard all of the other readers, including Floyd, and Floyd read his poem, Pussy, Pussy Everywhere. And so I'm glad you got to hear some of that poem. And some people laughed, some people clapped, but a lot of people booed. And they were really loud. And I'd never seen anything like that, either before or after, people booing at a poetry reading. And so then, of course, then the hoo-ha ended. And of course, Ken Keesey never put me on the schedule. I never got to read my poem. And then I come out of the gym, and it's raining, and I don't have an umbrella, but Floyd is right there behind me, and he said, can I walk you to wherever you're going? And I said, sure. And so he held up the umbrella. I was going back to the motel where I was staying with my then husband, Ted Fleischman, and our 2-year-old daughter. So the first thing Floyd said to me was, were you offended by my poem? And I said, no. Would you be offended if I read a poem called Peenies, Peenies Everywhere? And he said, no. And I said, great, we have an understanding. And then he said, did you read at the hoo-ha? And I said, no, Ken Keesey wouldn't put me on the schedule. And he said, well, what did you want to read? And I said I wanted to read this poem called Neural Folds that had been in the article on the Berkeley Poets Co-op. And then I recited the poem for Floyd, and I'll try to do that now. So, neural folds. The frog embryos spin. A million tiny skaters in bright sacks. Soon neurons will web each body, spreading fine mesh through muscle and skin. First, the neural folds must fuse. Crest cells edging a moonballed field, reach with bulbous arms. Flowing inward, they move toward each other. And when they finally meet, melding together cell by cell, there is no explanation. They know who they are. I can almost hear them yammering in strange tongues. And Floyd said, hey, that's a good poem. he should have let you read that poem. He said, I like that poem. It's a sexy poem. And so we kept walking. Floyd had met my husband because my ex-husband Ted was one of the founders of the Berkeley Poets Co-op, and Floyd had come to a few meetings. And so as we continued to walk, somehow we moved from talking about sexy poems to talking about relationships. And then Floyd said, your old man told me you have an open marriage. And I said, an open marriage. And I said, yes, my husband wanted that. I didn't. But I agreed to it because I didn't think he was really going to act on it. I thought it was just some sort of psychological construct, but he's having an affair. And Floyd said, well, if you ever want to have an affair too, just give me a call. and so Floyd and I never had, and I said, okay, and we both laughed. But Floyd and I never had an affair, but we remained friends. And so I'm now going to fast forward about 18 years, because when we had another conversation about relationships. And I was working at the Hall of Health in downtown Berkeley at that time. And I was working on my memoir, Married at 14, and I knew about Fred's memoir, Buffalo Nickel, and I wanted a copy, and I wanted him to sign it for me. And so he came down to see me at the Hall of Health and bring me Buffalo Nickel. And it's a really, really good book. If you haven't read it, you should do so. It was a great inspiration to me, and it really lit a fire under me to keep me going on my own memoir. So he comes down, he gives me Buffalo Nickel, and we go out to lunch. And he says, are you with anyone now? And I said, well, I have this on-again, off-again relationship, and it's not going very well. And he said, well, I've found the real thing. He said, Claire and I have been together for 14 years, and I'm just as much in love with her as I was at the beginning. And he said, you know how it is when you're crazy in love when you're a teenager? And it's just a thrill to look into someone's eyes or have them touch your hand. And I said, yeah, I remember that. And he said, it's like that with Claire every day. And so I said, well, congratulations on finding that. I hope I'll be in love like that someday too. And so one of the things I want to read by Floyd is just the introduction, the dedication to High Running Heart, because it captures that love and sense of wonder he had about Claire, and it also acknowledges death. So, for Claire, the light on your hair is gorgeous, the muse floating upon darkness lighter even than black gauze. The magic haunts me, this state of grace I feel now, this illumination of fact and fancy. The light on your hair and the light going on in my brain, the light of life, of hope, joy upon the surface of exquisite blackness, the long, dark mystery sleep of death. And I don't want death to be the last word I say, because Floyd was very much about life. And if I had to, describe him, some of the first words that come to mind are exuberant and passionate and uninhibited. And so I'm going to read a brief excerpt from a long poem that's in Color of My Living Heart. This is called Trip to the County Fair. He's high on acid in this poem, but I think it captures something fundamental about his personality, because I think that the acid just gave him a vehicle for expressing this exuberance that he actually felt a lot of the time. So this is just an excerpt. I'm high on acid, and I'm talking to everything. It's all the same. House, trees, people, cows, all the same. I can feel the wind on my cheek, and my bare chest, too. Bob of thorned vines to the breeze, Herb Alpert and his Tijuana brass behind me, and miniature roses the size of my pinky nail next to the porch, and I want to kiss them and tell them all sorts of things. And when I look up, I see the shadows on the hills floating among the stems of the tree trunks, like lily pads. And my dog Sergi, oh, my dog Sergi, how pretty he is. He curls down into a golden bowl of blonde color at my feet, tail wagging, thumping. Get up and bite my hand, Sergi. Saliva on it. Crunch your teeth on my knuckles. Hooray. And so hooray for Floyd.
Thank you, Lucy. That was beautiful. So Claire brought some books today. Floyd's stuff is up here. And someone that couldn't make it, Michael Young, I just want to mention this book in particular. His father, Al Young, and Ishmael Reed on their Yardbird Press put out Lay My Body on the Line. It's about when Floyd was at SF State and the activism there. I highly recommend you reading this book. Among all of these in there, Floyd's The Dog Love Poems and everything else. So we're going to have a little bit of music right now. We're going to have some later on when Greg's going to play the guitar. But right now, please welcome up to the stage Julia Carasquero.
Here, organize. That's good. This, I guess, comes this way. Can you hear me? Yeah, sort of? Okay. Oh. Okay, it was a ride at the BART. We were going back and forth between 12th Street and 19th Street. And I wondered where you were. Yeah. Okay, I think I got everything. Well, this song I'm going to play, I'm going to start with a well-celebrated song for Floyd. It's called Gracias a la Vida. It's known, and John Baez and Mercedes Sosa used to play this song a lot. Can you hear? Yes? Okay. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me dio dos luceros que cuando los abro perfecto distingo lo negro del blanco y en el alto cielo su todo estrellado. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el oído que en todo su ancho graba noche y día grillos y canarios y la voz tan tierna de mi bien amado. La 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 la. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado el sonido del abecedario con las palabras que pienso y declaro, madre, amigo, hermano, y la luz alumbrado. La 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 la. Gracias a la vida que me ha dado tanto, me ha dado la marcha que de pies cansados con ellos anduve, ciudades y charcos, playas y desiertos y montañas y llanos. La 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 la. Gracias a la vida. This next one, I'm running everywhere. This one, next one is for Clara. And Floyd, of course, is La Historia de un Amor. It's a Franco-Latino song. Ya no estás tú a mi lado, corazón. En el alma solo tengo soledad. Y si ya no puedo verte, porque Dios me hizo quererte para hacerme sufrir más. Siempre fuiste la razón de mi existir. Adorarte para mí fue religión. Y en tus besos yo encontraba el calor que me brindaba el amor y la pasión. Es la historia de un amor como no hay otro igual, que me hizo comprender todo el bien y todo el mal, que le dio luz a mi vida, apagándola después. Ay, qué vida tan sufrida, mi corazón tu amor no viviré. Mon histoire, c'est l'histoire d'un amour. Ma compote, c'est la plante des deux cœurs. Un roman qui est tant d'autres, qui pourrait être le vôtre. Ici est c'est la flamme qui enflamme sans brûler. C'est le rêve que l'on rêve sans dormir. Un grand arbre qui se dresse dans des forces de tendresse vers le jour qui va venir. C'est l'histoire d'un amour éternel et banal qui apporte chaque jour tout le bien et tout le mal. Avec la roue qu'elle s'enlace, celle où sont dit adieu, avec les soirées d'angoisse et les matins merveilleux. Okay. This last one is for, it's a waltz, popular in the 30s. It was played by Edith Piaf and Mireille Mathieu. It's called La Foule. Okay. Je revois la vie en fait dans ses livres, suffoquant sous le ciel et le soleil, et j'entends dans la musique les cris de rire qui éclatent et rebondissent autour de moi, perdu parmi les troncs qui se bousculent, étourdi, désemparé, je reste là, et quand soudain je me retourne et se recule, quand pion la foule est dans mes bras, emporté par la foule qui nous traîne et nous entraîne, écrasés l'un contre l'autre, nous ne font qu'un seul corps. Et le fond de ce fort nous pousse enchaîner les autres, épanouis et briller et serreux, entraînés par la foule qui se lance et qui danse une folle farandole, nous demande rester et parfois soulever notre corps sans lancer de vol et baigner vivre serein. Well, that's it. Okay.
once again, Julia Carrasquero. So a few years ago, I mentioned Al Young. A few years ago, I had the privilege of seeing a reading at the Beat Museum. It was Al Young, Floyd, and our next reader, Andrina Zawinski. So please welcome Andrina Zawinski.
That was a wonderful reading there. I was very honored to read with both of them. I'm short. It was Floyd's last reading, and I think the only time I saw him after that was at a birthday party. Sad to say. I'm going to read a poem of Floyd's from Love Bites, because we both love dogs, and I think this is a fine poem. Can you hear me okay with this? Because it's not at my mouth, so. I don't know how. It's not moving. Okay. It just my eyes. Thank you. Great. So this is Wild Dog. He wanted to be free, and he didn't know what to do with being free. So he ran down the one-way street in the middle of traffic, cars everywhere rolling down on him, then ran off into the blocks of silence that hid his self. This is what we all seek, the wild dog, unleashed on the city streets where the drummer thumps out the unspoken rhythm of our lives. We live in loneliness and seek to contact the other, which is what we are not. I was fortunate that to write a blurb for Floyd's High Running Heart. I'm just going to read 2 sentences from it. There is a heart beating hard here, Salas's high running heart. Lean in close and delight in its wild rhythms. And the poem I'd like to read from that is called Specters of the Ghosts We Once Were. Picture a family of friends in a tree. We spread out among the branches and sit down and let our legs hang above water as if walking on air. One will wear a hat and keep the leaves from his hair. One will strip down to his waist and feel the wind wrap itself around his chest, speak to his skin. Another will hold hands with the girl, and the two will make the branches sway with the talk of their love. Still one will look off across the water, thinking of the time when light flowed back over the earth and washed the corners of the winds dry. He thinks of the far-off time when his forefathers slept cradled up here, flowers refreshing the wild scent of beasts, patrolling down below the footpad on blown leaf in the darkness, the moon peering down through mottled shadow screech. Screech of night owl and whimper of dying mouse. The night keeps its secrets in the branches of our lives, where the eternal sea of the womb swirls in milky currents with the sigh of south winds. It wets to the touch with the mist of ground fog. It carries the specters of the ghosts we once were, that people are dreams. A question arises with the moon and stretches across the sky. It will go down with the dawn when our memories die. So I guess I chose 2 of Floyd's that were more philosophical. I know everybody thought he was funny and raw and wild, but I saw him as philosophical too. So Floyd, and thanks to Floyd and Claire for this award for a PEN Oakland award for this book, Something About. So I'd like to read a poem from that. This poem is actually composed, each stanza references another poem I wrote at some time, but it's for all our dead. Altarpiece. Children empty the mother's house of her, muscles aching from the weight of her loss, held in their arms so close to their hearts. Light a candle for them. Neighbors bemoan an old man lost just blocks from his home. No one ever reported him missing. Pray on beads for them. Strangers, heads darting this way and that, circle a young man on the tracks who slipped into a heap crossing the street. Petition the saints for them. Light a candle for them. Light a candle for girls who gave birth in the dark the way they conceived, buried stillborns in deep graves of grief. Bury your face in your hands for them. And for the parents whose children fell to open school ground fire, who uprooted wither upon the blood-soaked earth, lay down wreaths of marigolds for them. Ring bells for them. Ring bells for women pack at the heels with knife, brick, and pipe, who dropped in the dark, wrapped into sleep, then forgot. Cover the mirrors for them. Ring bells for the men who balk at the buck of the rifle butt, drop guns and run, rogues cast out from the pack. Raise flags for them, free doves for them, and for those with bodies bound by rope, throats gagged with rags, backs strapped and lashed, their cries silenced. Open a window for them. Deliver oblations for them, for all the apocalyptic visionaries who leapt to their ends from bridge rails or slept drunken on fumes in a room in a blanket of death. Burn incense for them. Sing chants at altars you create for them. Carve their names deep into stone you erect to them. Let their ashes take wings on the wind for them. This is another for Some of the Dead. Some of you may recognize this series. It's the teeniest little books from Robert Richard Hansen. And I believe he was originally from Sacramento. He's in San Diego. And he just did this series of poems for the Ukraine. So mine is number 6 in that series. It's called Dark Eyes. And that's for the song Ochichornya, which is a Russian folktale, but written by a Ukrainian poet. My grandmother, my Polish-Ukrainian grandmother, used to sing it to me as a child. It has an epigraph from Szymborska from her life while you wait. Whatever I do will become forever what I have done. The girl's family gathers at the kitchen table, her box of colored pencils and pad of paper that praise the beauty of nightingales and trees, packed away with a book of verse and trident charm wrapped inside a silky blue-yellow flag. Potatoes simmer on the stove to mash, to stuff pierogi dough, but now they make Molotov cocktails, fill shell casings, balk at air raid sirens and booms in a blood-red sky, bleeding down on stuffed satchels made ready to cross some border, any border. The girl's baba, just outside the window, braves a soldier, hands him a fistful of sunflower seeds, implores him to put down his gun, to plant them. While others deliver curses and spells, she sings Ochichornya, the street thickening with the fog of ghosts who have come, who are about to come. I want to read this poem for Claire because I'm sure she and Floyd had many times like this, as anybody who has somebody they love deeply. It's called It Is Enough for Now, Villanelle for Mornings. It is enough in this first breath of morning to lie here with you, light slipping between us, our fingers laced, lids still swollen with sleep. Enough to listen to the distant sound of an early train, song of a buoy in the bay, chime of bells in the breeze. It is enough in this first breath of morning to talk about the night's dreams and to dream across seas, up rivers, into the wild hills, our fingers laced, lids still swollen with sleep. It is enough to hold on to each other, to keep each other still and quiet in place. It is enough in this first breath of morning, enough to breathe in the sky, the bright of sun crossing and washing the continents of our bodies. It is enough in this first breath of morning, our fingers laced, lids still swollen with sleep. And I'd like to end with a very short one. It's called When, a Lament. When the dead grew too heavy for the heart to bear, when memory could not console nor priest, nor God, nor soaring bird, when you reached for me and I was not there, when what was said, almost said, is what endures. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrina. So we're doing really good on time. So I think before we bring up Greg and Claire to close us out, I'm going to open it up to the floor because I see a lot of faces. I feel lucky that Floyd invited me to his birthday party every year, and those are a lot of fun. So I see some faces. I met at Floyd's birthday party. So basically, anybody who wants to come up, we're doing good on time. Try to keep it under 5 minutes so we can kind of move it along, and then also hang out before it's time to go. So come on up. We'll just kind of let it go.
It's just about a memory of Floyd. Hi, I'm Mary, and I took a lot of Floyd's classes, and I've known him since 1998. And so I just want to talk about some memories I have of Floyd. There's so many. He passed away on the 7th anniversary of my dad's passing. Two great men, And then Floyd was so much more than just my teacher, writer, mentor, and friend. He and Claire became family to me and to my kids. I took creative writing classes at night at Foothill College from back in 1998 with Floyd. And I continued taking the classes for many years along with a core group of friends. Floyd treated everyone in those classes, along with their stories, with respect. He valued each and every person, and we had the additional benefit of his lovely partner, Claire, also reading our stories and commenting. They'd bring their dog, Rocky, to class, and I'd bring my 7-year-old daughter, Megan, with me. By the way, Megan's almost 30 now, and I just saw her, and she still remembers those days. And she still remembers Rock the dog. So that was a part of her life she didn't forget. Megan was well-behaved, and everyone adored her. Floyd would put her to work, passing papers around, and Megan often sat on the floor next to Rocky the dog. We'd all meet at the Boardwalk pizza place after class, and Floyd would ask us all, "What's the worst thing you've ever done?" That's what you want to write about. Whoops, that's what you want to write about. We learned so much from Floyd. Like he'd yell dramatically in class, "What you don't want to write, we want to hear." And of course, he'd go over the 5-point plot plan, and sometimes he'd yell about it. The 5-point plot plan. We'd attend parties at Floyd's place in Berkeley, and they visited us as well. Some of the end-of-quarter get-togethers were at wherever we were living at the time, usually close by. My kids said they remembered a bunch of old people dancing and stomping in the hallway. We all love Floyd and Claire. I have so much more to say, but it took me this many days just to get some words out. More about the legendary Floyd Salas to come. As my daughter Megan said when I told her about Floyd, she said, "Floyd is a legend, and he will remain in our hearts forever." Make them suffer, he would say. The more they suffer, the better it is. That was Floyd. Make them suffer.
Okay, Toby. Can I go? Yes.
Hey, so Ishmael Reed said writing is fighting, but Floyd did it. Writing is fighting. Floyd did it. So I met Floyd when I became involved with California Poets in Schools in the mid-1970s. So we know each other for a long time. I have a couple of poems I thought he would like. He was just a lovely, crazy guy. Lying awake, trying to fall asleep. My heart is a baseball. My heart is a fighter, clenched in the grip of a great pitcher. My heart is the sound of dogs or rats, somebody crawling under the house. That little yippy dog in the corner trapped outside. My heart is my dog, snoring on the pillow, and you're breathing sleep on the pillow next to me. My heart is the drum, the poet on the stage, the banjo and the accordion, the piano riff, and the guitar chords and the singers, and the foghorn, and the didgeridoo. My heart is the hours. My heart is the books, the students, the songs, the stories, a country walk, all the stuff in our basements, all the stuff, the storage sheds. My heart is a yoga stretch. My heart is a dance, a city dance, the traffic, the steaming heart in the television, in the basement, in Queens, my books, my study, newspapers, smiling and piled all over. My heart, the baseball going over the fence. My heart on this computer screen. My heart, the dog licking her paws. The garden debris, the tchotchkes, and poets, and pots, and wire fencing that need to be thrown away or stored neatly. My heart is the money worry and the freedom to write. My heart is like all of you, my teachers, my poets. My heart is the mentor, the heart that is wordless and soundless and useful and useless. A fly ball getting caught for an out. A ground ball getting thrown to the base, tagging the runner. My heart is an earthquake, and all the people suffering all over the world without food or freedom or information, and learning ways to understand and apply their knowledge for progressive creative good. And my heart is the worry about abuse and mistreatment, the crumpling of paper, the beep beep of a truck backing up. My heart, my parents, and sleeping. My heart, the cats on the prowl, curled up, homeless curled up safely somewhere. My heart, the mountains, the rivers, the forests and villages, the lonely and unknown, terrifying and lovely. It's a little shorter. So for quite some time, and I think that, I always think about Floyd like being a little boxer and a jockey too. He's a jockey of all kinds of rhythms and memories. Lesson in jail, one of my experiences here. And I think Floyd and I intersect while I taught in county jail. The cold, brittle light falls upon shadows and walls and faces, and the memory of walls ease desire and erase pain, and echo the voices and the whispers, and silence is spoken. There's a blast of smoky air, a heart wreck in the wind. We are deserted and we rush away and tear through lies and promises. And Floyd was honest. What we do not have, surely, a rainy day without rain, no balloons drifting, the set of knees and clenched, muscled hands. Thank you, everybody.
I'm not familiar with any of you except that I'm in a few of his books. I was with him since 1967 when I was an 18-year-old virgin who was in his creative writing class. And not for long. And I spent 13 years with him during some pretty momentous years of his life, and mine as well, but I could only stand 13 years with him, so Claire came along, and she had the marathon, but we were together through some of the books that he wrote, and I was a poet as well, and I was I took creative writing at San Francisco State. That's where I met him actually, and then got my degree there. And I put together a few poems from that time frame, and I just wanted to read a couple of them. One is funny because it was, after I left Floyd in 1980. I could hear his voice in my head for years. It's a very distinctive voice, and I never got that voice out of my head for years. And sometimes he even would talk through my mouth. Things would come out of my mouth that, where was that? Where did that come from? But here's a little poem that I wrote called Chug-a-Lug, and if you remember Floyd, he had a distinctive way of speaking. And this is actually almost verbatim from something that he was telling a group of people. The place poured like sweat, so stoned on abstract jazz, sheer agony to lose the beat. 18 half-quart cans of beer, that's my record. But at 17, it was a pint of whiskey because we didn't like beer and wanted to get high. You better take a hit first, man. I'd chug-a-lug it down. No, I chug-a-lug it down. You take it first. Then zit, I drank it all the way down and zit on my lips. And I heard my heart go boom, 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 boom. I was so drunk I started kissing all the girls, and I was the pet of the dance. Some guys wanted to blast me, fraternity dudes, and all my friends came around to protect me. And this one guy, he slept with his arm around me so I wouldn't get cold. That was a classic Floyd story. He used to tell a lot of stories, and he was very entertaining. Here's my story, and this is how it all went down. It's called It's My Age. And I think I was about 20 when I wrote this. So I'd spent a couple of years with him. Wait a minute, no, I think it was 25 when I wrote this. Yeah. At 18, I sat mittens ready on the park bench to go, which I did with you. No one called the cops, though my thumb was still wet in my mouth, getting fucked for the first time and falling off the bed to please you. At 19, I was your queen, content as an old lady in the kitchen, cooking stew, nothing to do. At 20, I was a toad in Spanish widow's black, roasting chickens for Christmas without Jesus or any other contributions from those who ate and drank cheap wine, crying 2,000 miles away for my Donner and Blitzen, you falling in love with that rich Spanish soil, me grumbling about those stupid salesgirls who never heard about cream rinse for my American-made hair. At 21, my first drunk was following you into the tomato patch, a single-edged razor, a curse in my ear to what I did to kill you. You came back, relieved that my painless age, slicing my tender youth, could pass inspection next time we entered a bar. At 22, I went to work, watching the ladies with their Ruth Atkins tears, looking into bathroom mirrors at their wrinkles, their careers the same color of their lipstick, everything matched, and their husbands approved of women's lib, and so did you when I was 22. At 23, I lost my age, and thus began those weekend illusions, leading toward a year forgotten on the back road, where I leaned from face to share a drink, remembering too well something was missing from my own empty can of beer. Then 24 was more than that, and I was lost again, a 4-year figure in the computer, tossed out like a paycheck, adding up to lucky breaks, schedules, and dirty rooms, me making comparisons to those younger than my own bending shoulders. And at 25, I watched the clock, holding no faith in its silent electric heart, and you holding me down with your kisses, and sending me those apparitions standing in the bedroom door. You don't like me anymore, but I'm telling you, it's my age. I think I went on for another 8 years with him. There you go. Thank you. I recorded the whole thing, so it's good.
Anybody else?
All I was going to say is that Victor Martinez, I don't know if anybody knew Victor Martinez. Victor Martinez was a poet that I knew about 30 years ago. He used to talk about Floyd Salas. I used to go on and on about Floyd Salas. And this book, Buffalo Nickel, that was such a great book. And I had to read this book. And that's all he would ever talk about. It was his favorite book, you know. And Victor was a really great writer. He's also gone. And I've been writing a memoir, you know, and it's not about me, it's about them. But finally I read this book, and he was right, it was incredible. And that's what I'm going to read from. But Lucy talked a little bit about this book, but I'm surprised more people don't know this book. But I'm writing a memoir, like I said, and I think Victor wrote a book called, maybe you've heard of it, Parrot the Elephant. It won the National Book Award. And you read that book and you read this book, there may be some corollaries, you know? Like maybe he was influenced by Floyd. This is from the beginning. I'm reading from the very beginning, the first page. That's all I'm going to read.
You got a bike here up front?
That might be behind you. His big plastic leg took up the whole back seat. And he held his crutches next to him. He was 8, he was 11, and I was almost 2. We were taking my brother Al home from the hospital where he had been put after jumping head first off a 30-foot water tower. I stared at him. He was a spectacular sight to me. The similarity between the two books is they're like coming of age stories. If you know either one of them, you know. It's about family, you know. And all the Latin writers seem to like Floyd Salas. I don't know why, but Gary Soto and all these other guys. Where are they? Where are they? They should be here today. Where are those guys? We know Victor's dead. Why aren't they here tonight? No. They owe him a debt of gratitude, possibly.
Yay.
It was the Deep Depression of 1933. We lived in a mining town called Brighton, and my father was lucky to have a job. He had a job because he was a hard worker, the best, a deputy sheriff's son who grew up on a ranch and knew how to get things done, like blow coal and out of the tunnel with walls with dynamite so other men could load it. I remember that tower. My oldest brother, Eddie, who was 13 and an intellectual prodigy, swung me around by an arm and a leg up there and scared the hell out of me. I caught my breath, got dizzy and nauseous, and saw a damp, dark spot on the earth beneath the tower spout under the tower. When Eddie came to bring Al home to get a spanking for selling some of Dad's rabbits for a big jar of marbles, Al jumped head first from the tower. That's my first memory of my brother Al. It has set the tone for the rest of my life as I see it. Tragic, but with a stubborn streak of survival in it that has denied defeat. Oh, he was fun though. He took me to my first movie when I was 3. It was in a red brick building across the dirty alley from our yard in the small town of Lafayette, Colorado. He took me right down to the first row where we sat looking up. I remember being astounded by the size of the big cowboys in front of me. And somebody behind us was shining a big flashlight down on them. I kept looking back and forth from it to the spinning wheels of the stagecoach. It astounded me. I couldn't figure it out. It was real and real, not real, another spectacular sight. Next, I remember this little suburb in Denver called Elyria, where my father worked in a packing plant. Al took me to a house where somebody stuck a rake under a front porch and pulled out little warm puppies. Then he taught me to shoot little green buds off a tree like spit wads. I was still 3 then, but I remember him when I was 4, and we lived in a red brick 2-story building on Curtis Street in Denver. We lived on the bottom floor. Yeah, get that book. Read that book.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for sharing those memories. It's beautiful. Yeah, his novels, Tattoo the Wicked Cross, Buffalo Nickel on the Dime. I could hear Floyd's voice in those poems, and it's funny. He caught me off guard one time. So going to his place, back when I had the artist lifestyle and I could go there on a weekday, we're drinking beers at noon and smoking some weed, and all of a sudden he said, "What's the worst thing you ever done?" Man, he caught me off guard with that one. But we had a great conversation. He was great for conversation, philosophical, the whole thing. Yeah, just incredible. So next up, we're going to bring up Floyd's son, Greg. He's going to play a little music for us, and please welcome Greg Salas.
What is the worst thing you've ever done?
The thing I admitted to Floyd was I was like, drinking and driving. He's like, all right, but he could see that I was holding.
Claire bought me this T-shirt, and she said, "You wear it today." Yeah, it's going to take a moment because I should have done this at the beginning. On the other hand, I'll do it now. One to each individual, one to couples.
I got one. Thank you. That's Dorothy. That's Dorothy. That's Greg and Floyd.
That is Telegraph Avenue, Casa de Eva, 1994.
Once a week.
I ran these off yesterday.
Yes.
Well, that's Floyd's sister on the far left, or far right, if you're looking at it.
Yeah, no. I like his original though.
You got one? Okay.
That's a great picture. Thank you, Greg.
You're welcome. You're welcome. If anybody else comes in, let me know, and I'll be glad to give them another one, because we got quite a few left, which I'll give to family, by the way, too. Okay, the reason why, well, that's not the only reason, but I made that photograph because about 2-3 weeks ago on KQED, Pledge Drive, they did Concert for George Harrison. And some of you saw it. Mary did, apparently.
I've seen it several times.
Right, yeah. So I caught it.
Paul McCartney too. So.
Was he in the Concert for George? I didn't.
Yes, he was.
He was near the end, huh?
He was. He did something.
Thank you.
He
Yeah,
did a
because
big tribute and played the ukulele.
along with Ringo. Along with Ringo. Okay, very good. Yeah, I could have sworn that, but we ran out a copy of the words to photograph, which is why I made those photographs. So, but a few months earlier, I saw the same Concert for George on PBS again, and prior, and I heard the song, but I heard a lot of songs, and they were all good. And it was at the Royal Albert Hall in 2002 on the first anniversary of George's death. So anyway, that's what brought me around to getting the photographs made up. And the thing was, portrait, on the photograph, it's like I'd seen it a few months before, but then Claire brought out this big bundle of papers, and they were kind of stuck together. So I started peeling them apart. And I found this photograph of, the only photograph I have of an old girlfriend and me and her and her best friend at the beach at Half Moon Bay, San Gregorio Beach. And that was like 1980, I said, wow, I want to keep that, got it in the dirt pile, because, it was all stuck together. The photograph came out pretty good. I made a couple copies of it. Then, the same day that I found that photograph was when they showed the second time I saw Concert for George. And then it had a special meaning in addition to the girl that I found the photograph of, my dad, Wow. Yeah, so anyhow, about 2-3 weeks ago, I tried to memorize the words to photograph. And I hope I do. But it wasn't until last night that I actually tried to find out where the music is on the guitar. So I'm going to attempt to do it. If I fail, I shall carry on. Also, I'm going to play. I haven't played guitar since Dad died at his funeral service. This is the first. Last night was the first night I picked up the guitar since we had Dad's funeral. And before that, I hadn't played in I don't remember how many years. Probably 1 or 2. Yeah. Okay. Well, anyhow. One of the songs I'll be playing that I played at the funeral, because I didn't play Photograph by Ringo, is Pinball Wizard. I cover it very briefly. I'm going to do a raga after I do Photograph. I'm going to do a raga. And it's got Pinball Wizard in it. And when I say raga, it's a medley. And so I've got a whole bunch of songs all put together. I start off with I'm So Glad by Cream, the chord pattern. But then I blend into Light My Fire, and then I go into Beginnings by Chicago. Anyway, I'm going to put a whole bunch of stuff together. And I've been doing this for years. I don't even know what the pattern is or the order it just occurs. But I've done it for so long, I get it all in there somehow. But Pinball Wizard reminds me of Dad, because I taught, it's like, somebody said Pitts. I remember one of the poets here, and she met Dad through Pitts. Anyhow, Dad took me to Salinas High School as an assistant to him in Pitts, and he took me to Mendocino High School. He took me to Campo Lindo High School with him, and God, where else? Well, anyway, then I saw him teach at Vista College, and then I saw him teach at Foothill College. And when Dad got a piece of chalk in his hand in front of a blackboard, he covered that blackboard and filled it up like no teacher, no professor I've ever seen in my life. He was a pinball chalk, piece of chalk wizard, man. And he'd go, over here, over there. And the word I most saw on the board when he would get done would be soul. and he'd always draw, and he'd do soul again, and he'd draw a line from that back to wherever he was directing that to or from. Dad was a trip. He was a trip on chalkboard. He was really something to see. Okay, so I'm going to try Photograph by Ringo Starr. George Harrison and Ringo wrote it together. Ringo wrote the words, and then, but he said he only knew 3 chords, so he went and saw George, and he said George would add a few chords, which I didn't catch. Since I picked it up last night, I didn't listen to the record. I just, I know the melody in my head, so I might have missed those 4 chords. Ringo said he only knew 3 chords, and he said he'd give it to George, and George would add 4 more chords, and they'd say, Ringo's a genius, people would say. Well, anyhow, so I'm going to try Photograph. Every time I see your face, it reminds me of places I used to go. Excuse me. Every time I see your face, it reminds me of the places we used to go. Ooh, bad. Okay. Every time I see your face, it reminds me of the places we used to go. But all I've got is a photograph, and I realize you're not coming back anymore. I thought I could make it day you went away, but I can't make it till you come home again to stay. I can't get used to living here, my heart is broke, my tears I cry for you. I want you here to have and hold as years go by. We grow old and gray. I thought I know, now I know you're expecting me to live without you. But that's not something I'm looking forward to. I can't get used to living here, my heart is broke, my tears I cry for you. I want you here to have and hold as the years go by, we grow old and gray. Every time I see your face, it reminds me of the places we used to go. But all I have is a photograph, and I realize you're not coming back anymore. All right. Thank you for hanging in there with me. Okay, I should do this one a little bit better. But Dad told me always have courage. And when you screw up, keep on going. get a lap down. I wish I could sing it to you, Floyd. Yeah, I wish I could sing it to you. Whoa, 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 Since I was a young boy, I played the silver ball. So down to Brighton, I must have played them all. I ain't seen nothing like them in any amusement hall. Said that dipped on a black, it sure plays a mean pinball. Ooh. Stands like a statue for them button bells. Can see them lights a flashing. He plays by the sense of smell. I ain't always gets to replay. I've never seen him fall. Said that deaf and blind kid sure plays a mean pinball. Thank you for putting up with my plugs, too. Somebody next?
Sorry. Move this up a little. No. Okay. Thank you, Greg. That was beautiful. So to round it out tonight, no introduction is needed, but please welcome up Claire Altalda.
I want you to round it out.
Well, I'll finish off with the poem.
Okay, good. Tate's going to round it out. I'm the pre-round. You guys, I'm so grateful that you came. Tate, I'm so grateful to you for doing this because I just couldn't get it together. And Eric, thank you. I guess you're back there somewhere. I'm going to take a picture of the audience because that's what Floyd did. That's what he, so smile, everybody. I hope I can pick you out. And the other thing I'd like to do, and I'm sorry, Eric, this is so anti-bookstore, but when it's over, if anybody wants any of these books, please take them as a gift from Floyd, and I'm very sorry they don't have his signature in there because he had a beautiful signature. He had absolutely beautiful signature. So anyway, I'm going to read a poem that I read to him at our wedding and at his funeral. And then I'm going to read, am I doing this right? Then I'm going to read a few of his poems. Okay, I'm going to start crying, so just ignore me. Okay, Gift Wrapped in Grass. Oh, little intro. I read this at the Art and Soul Festival, and they used to have a literary component before they said forget it. And I remember shouting it over this band that was nearby, anyway, in Oakland. But I also remember Jack Foley was there. He goes, "This isn't Floyd," because this is a different side of Floyd. Floyd, he thought Floyd was going to hit him every moment. So this is a little different side, okay? It's called Gift Wrapped in Grass. You are too delicate, and so you have to be kept in a vase and watered. You cry too easily, so I have to dance and make jokes and tease and pet you. There is a smell of pine and forest crushed in your hair, so I have to tame you with bits of food held out at arm's length. I have to sing to you with high, cooing syllables of love, or you won't eat from my palm, and I'll be hungry for the soft puff of your breath on my skin. You could run at any moment back into your soul with the 1,000-year-old redwoods and the hiding places where bushes cup a dark space. You could keen in a language I don't know, swaying with the curtains of memory that brush your face like scarves, model your eyes with pain. You have left me a gift wrapped in grass. It's shaped like tears, but it's not. But it is some kind of water. You give me some to taste, and then I lick it off your hand and your face and your hard belly and your arched chest. And then I drink it from your mouth, you feeding me with your soul, with some white honey. I drink and drink, rescued from dry death. And then I laugh, my mouth close to yours, because I haven't saved you with my little bits of childish love, held out on a palm made flat for you to eat, or with my little aimless song, the notes crushed and falling like a straggly bouquet of wilderness. You have saved me. You have saved me. It was you saving me all along. Sorry. Didn't make it quite through. Okay, I put this book together, and it was published by a press in Long Island. But because there was poems in here that had been published, most of them had been published in magazines, but they'd never been brought together. They'd never been in book form, and they were some of his classics. And I just want to say that Floyd had a wide range of poetic style. He had some very I call it very dense poetic style. I'm just going to read the last stanza because it's too long, an example of it. This is what is called as poems of heresy, prayers of heresy. This was from a lament on original sin. But I just want to kind of show the differences in style. This is the end. It was a poem to God. If this is thy will, Father, and I have tread a fool's path, then, Father, in thy name, Father, ease these bitter constrictions of memory and artery, tangled in my heart, parasites and host, ease the throttling music in my throat, the glare of my chalk eye. Let this right hand bind the fist of the left. Let them clasp palms from fingernail to lifeline. Let them suffer the odor and salt of mutual sweat and crossed thumbs. Father, in the name of the Father, let me forgive myself and men. I mean, to me, that is so dense that you could sit there and analyze, and the whole poem was like that. And then he had other kinds of poems, and now I'm going to read Wedo. Poem, you know that. I love this poem. Wedo. When I was 15, I was a pachuco, which is a Mexican zoot suitor, and very dark and very curly-haired and tough, and can whip sailors and Okies by himself or with his gang. But I was small for my age and Spanish and so white for my Mexican buddies, they nicknamed me Wedo, which means white, and didn't have curly hair and would never be 6 feet tall and wasn't very tough. But I was brave, and I had a Hollywood haircut that was wavy on top and fell onto my forehead like Frank Sinatra's and combed into such a smooth duck's ass in back that everybody admired it. In fact, it had so much pomade in it to keep it stiff and in tight place as a helmet that I could dive into a forest stream from a high rock in Mendocino County and go way down and coast way up and get out all dripping and wet without even putting a dent in it. So that's a lovely, lovely poem. I'll just read another real short poem and then I'll end with a different kind of poem. Part of the aim of this book is to show that he has such a range of poetic styles. A polka dot red with the smell of snuff. I said hello to a man in a truck checking some asphalt patches on the pavement. He reminded me of my father in his working clothes and his khaki shirt and his Frisco jeans and his old hat and his wrinkles all over his brown face. And I remembered when I was 4 and found my father's handkerchief in the back pocket of his work pants, and it was a polka dot red and smelled of snuff. So anyway, I'm going to conclude with, where is it? And I'm so glad Andrina read Specters of the Ghosts We Once Were. I've been looking through all his papers and stuff, and I found this photograph of him sitting on a branch over a stream, which is exactly like this poem that you read, Spectre. Anyway, this is called A Fine Madness, and it ends with the title of this book, and he truly had a high-running heart. Okay, A Fine Madness. There's an old man who lives in a little yellow house next door with a green roof and a long front yard in the middle of a block of tenements, an acronym that will die when he does and the developers get it. My friend Patrick calls me by phone from his girl's apartment. His voice is quiet, scared, as if afraid to really speak. I'll call you back. There's a green dart stuck in the roof of the old man's little house, and for some reason, the old man has painted the bottom half of the house orange like a golden water line at sunset and nailed green wooden bars across the bottom of his windows that couldn't keep a thief out. Bright green ceramic tiles walk across the dark earth of his yard and crumble at the edges. Patrick drank a pint of whiskey for his raging toothache, he says. No shit. But he had a stroke 3 months ago and was paralyzed, and he risks it again if he drinks, if he pours his life away. A dog's tail flickers down the old man's back stairs. A flock of birds whirl by. A cat sleeps in the ivy, and a fire plug stands with stumped arms, a dull red, like a small statue of Christ. I tell Patrick to choose the madness of Yeats and not the mania of Dylan Thomas. Become a major force, not a dead young poet. He reads me a poem in answer. Sun pierces the gray sky, washes to peach the old man's orange wall. From somewhere, violins rise in a melodious plaint. The music flows through me, sweet strings, the palpitations of a high-running heart. Thanks. Thank you, Tate. I hope you read something, Tate.
Yes, I will.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm gonna get my glasses out for it. Thank you, Claire. That was beautiful. So, I'm going to conclude it with one of Floyd's poems. He should take us out. Thank you once again, Eric, Bird Beckett, for having us here. Eric's great. He's like keeping it down back there. Thumbs up. That's it. I mean, I don't need. Try it one time. That sounds good. We're back in. All right, I'm putting on my glasses on for this one. This is from Color of My Living Heart. This is Sounds Out of the Inner Ear. Love drips like a beaded chain of water, throbbing like a drum on the stone of your heart. I can smell the wine on your breath. We pump to the same pulse. We shape each other. We bend in all the right places. The chords of your neck stand out. Sweat makes a current of my arms, a creak of my prick. Sound comes out of the inner ear when you are near. Floyd Salas. Thank you, everyone, for coming here. We still got a little bit of booze left. We're going to take the party out to the sidewalk in just a minute, but we'll congregate for a second. And don't forget, please take books.
pues,